I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make chocolate chip cookies, and this is what they look like. These cookies are wonderfully buttery sweet. The edges are nice and crisp, yet the centers are soft and chewy, and of course, they're full of chocolate chips. So the first thing that you will need to do is to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius. And then you will need a couple baking sheets. You can line them with parchment paper like I've done here, or you could just lightly butter them. And then to make our batter, if you have a stand mixer like I do, use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer for this, or really you could just use a large bowl with a wooden spoon. The first thing you will need is 1 cup, which is 225 grams of butter. I like to use unsalted, 1 because I like the flavor, and 2 I like to control the salt. But if you have a favorite salted butter, then just go ahead and use that. And you want your butter at room temperature. So I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm just going to beat it on medium speed just until it gets nice and smooth. Okay. And when you're making any batter, periodically scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl because we want to make sure everything gets mixed together. So next, you will need 3/4 of a cup, which is 150 grams of granulated white sugar, and 3/4 of a cup, 160 grams of light brown sugar. And if you're not weighing your sugar, then make sure you really pat it down in your measuring cup. And then I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons, 6 grams of pure vanilla extract. That's simply for flavoring. And I'm just going to mix this on medium, high speed, just until everything gets mixed together and we get a little bit of air in our batter, but not too much. So maybe a minute or two. Okay, that looks good. So this is what you're looking for. Just everything's mixed together, a little bit of air. So, you can do this by hand because it's not like we have to beat this batter for a long time. So now we're going to add 2 large eggs, which is 100 grams. Have your eggs at room temperature. I'm going to add 1, beat that in, and then add the second one. Okay, let's give that a scrape. Okay, so now for our dry ingredients, I have in a bowl 2 1/4 cups, which is 295 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. To that, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of baking soda. Baking soda not only gives your chocolate chip cookies a little bit of lift, but it also helps to give the edges nice and crisp, which I like. And then you will need 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. Now, if you used salted butter, I would just leave out that salt. And then I'm just going to whisk that. You want to make sure that baking soda and salt is really mixed in to your flour. And then I'm just going to dump that in. And then, of course, we need chocolate chips. Whoops. So I'm going to put in 1.5 cups, which is 270 grams of chocolate chips. That's about the amount I like. Of course, if you want more, you could add more. So you can use, there's different chocolate chips. There's semi-sweet, there's bittersweet, there's milk chocolate, there's white chocolate. My preference here is to use a bittersweet. And the reason I like that is because, the batter, let's face it, is a little sweet. So I find that, using a bittersweet chocolate chip kind of counters that sweetness of the batter. Or, another thing you could do is to add, use a combination, maybe some bittersweet with some semi-sweet or maybe white. So, experiment. And, it depends what your family likes as well. So now what I'm going to do is mix this on low speed just until everything gets all combined. Okay, we're done. Okay. Scrape all that. So now, if we're going to bake off our chocolate chip cookies right away, you don't have to. And especially, you know, if you're in a warm kitchen, which I am, but we're going to bake them off anyways. If your batter is a little soft, then cover it and put it into the refrigerator maybe 30, 60 minutes before baking. Actually, what you can do, if you don't want to bake all of these off today, because this probably makes somewhere between 30 and 35 cookies, so you might not want to, unless you're baking for some occasion, you might not want to bake them all off. You can actually leave this batter in the refrigerator for a couple of days. So when the kids come home and they want a freshly baked cookie, you can just do that. So now, I'm going to, I'm making fairly large cookies. Maybe they're about 3 inches, which is about 7.5 centimeters. You can make them any size you want. The only difference will be in the baking time. And I'm using about 2 tablespoons of batter. So if you have an ice cream scoop that is about 2 tablespoons, use that, because that way you have every cookie the same size, and plus it's a lot easier to make them. And that would be about, if you wanted to weigh each cookie, be about 35 grams. Now, I'm not putting a lot. I'm only putting about 6 cookies on my baking sheet because they do spread. You could probably put up to about 8, but I'm just going to do 6 today. And then, because I'm using their little mounds, I do like to kind of press them down. You could use the palm of your hand. I don't feel like getting all sticky, so I'm just going to use, well, you can just use the back of a spoon. Try to get them, flatten them all the same. Okay. So there we go. Now, I don't know whether you noticed at the beginning, if you just bake them off like this, they will look like this. If you ever gone to a bakery, they seem to have these like chunks of chocolate on top. So that's what I'm going to do on some of them to show you. Now I'm using little chunks of chocolate, but you could just use the chocolate chips as well, be the same thing, and just press some in. I think it looks kind of cool. So you can put as many or as little as you want. Remember, they do spread out. I'll do some with and some without, so you can kind of see the difference. So baking time. You know, everyone's oven, as I always say, is a little different. And it really depends on how do you like your chocolate chip cookie? So for me, what I said at the beginning, is I like the edges nice and crisp, but I like the centers of the cookies kind of soft and chewy. So I find for this size cookie in my oven, around 10 minutes. Now, you know, maybe a little less. Some people actually like their chocolate chip cookies almost like underbaked, so then you probably do a little less. If you like it crisp all the way through, then a little longer. So, you know, you're going to have to do probably 1 sheet to kind of experiment and see how you like yours. I do like to rotate my baking sheet front to back about halfway through baking time. So I'm going to say about 10 minutes. Okay, our chocolate chip cookies are done. So put your baking sheet on a wire rack. So this is how I like my chocolate chip cookies. You can see the outside beautifully golden brown, yet the inside a little soft. That's how I like them. So what you want to do is let them cool a few minutes because they're still quite soft in the pan, and then use a spatula to transfer them to a wire rack to finish cooling. Now I just wanted to show you this. At this point, of course, you could make put another pan of chocolate chip cookies in the oven, or like I said, you could cover your batter and put it into the refrigerator for a couple days. The other choice is to freeze the unbaked cookies. So that's what I'm going to do here. So what I've done is just form all my cookies. I did flatten them, and then, as you can see, I like them with the chocolate chunks on top. So I did that. What I'm going to do is take this, put it into the freezer until these are frozen solid, and then just take either a plastic freezer bag, or you could a container, and they'll just pick them up, put them in the bag, and then put them in the freezer, and then you can just bake these off frozen. Now they will of course take a couple minutes longer than if they were not frozen, but this is a great way if you don't want that you can do something ahead of time, which we all like. So I'm just going to let these cool for a few minutes, and then when we come back we'll try one. Okay, so we'll try one. They're still a little warm. That's why it is nice to have the batter in the fridge or have them in the freezer, because who doesn't like a freshly made chocolate chip cookie? Now the edges, they're nice and crisp. Once you eat a chocolate chip cookie, you know why they're America's favorite cookie. They are delicious. The outside is wonderfully crisp. Using butter, and then also, like I said, we added some baking soda, which helps to make those edges really nice and crisp. Yet, the center is still it's not underbaked, but it's still soft and a little chewy. And I really like the kind of more bittersweet chocolate chip here, because the batter is, like I said before, sweet, and then I think that chocolate really counters the batter. I mean, the perfect cookie. Once you cover these, like store them overnight, the cookie is going to soften, so those edges won't be as crisp, but they're still excellent. So try these, and until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of JoyOfBaking.com.